Well, yeah, the college admissions process, it can be a little complicated. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of different pieces, but if students, focus, break down some of those bigger tasks into smaller things, it's not that intimidating after you start getting into it. First and foremost, students should be pretty focused, pretty interested on the college admission requirements. The state now has a name for those. They call them the CADRs, C-A-D-R-S, and that stands for the College Academic Distribution Requirements. It's essentially the college admission requirements that we've always had and always known about. 4 years of English is a requirement, 3 years of math, 3 years of social studies, 2 years of lab science, 2 years of foreign language, and 1 year of fine art. So those are the college entrance requirements. So you get those fulfilled. That's the main thing colleges are going to be looking for. Strength of schedule senior year is a big one too. So colleges are very interested in students maximizing their academic opportunities. So if your school offers honors classes, AP, IB, then colleges are going to be looking for those specific classes on your transcript. So very good idea to maximize that schedule. And essentially you want to send the message. I'm not coasting through my senior year and slacking off, that I'm actually I'm applying myself and I'm working hard because I want to be able to be successful at that college level. SAT or ACT tests, those are the college entrance examinations. A student can take either or. They don't have to take both. If they want to take both, that isn't necessarily a bad idea either. The timeline for these tends to be spring of a student's junior year is the time I usually suggest they take it for the first time. And then if they want to retake it, fall of the senior year is a good time to retake it. Spring of the junior year, and I kind of highlight that specifically because that comes at the tail end of a student's school year. So if you wait until fall of the senior year, you have the issue of you've gone through summer vacation, you've forgotten some stuff. There's like math components that might not be as crisp and clear, but if you take it at the end of your junior year, you've gone as far through that school year with as much information, packed into your head to be most successful on that exam. As far as the two tests are concerned, they tend to be, sort of a regional popularity, regional dominance-oriented thing. The SAT is more common out here on the West Coast and back in the Northeast. The ACT is the more prevalent test in the Southeast, Midwest, and Mountain West. But every school in the country is going to take either or. In fact, the only school I'm aware of that has a preference is BYU, Provo, Utah. They tend to prefer the ACT. In terms of the, what test is better to take, I would just say this. SAT, there is a penalty for wrong answers on that. With the ACT, there's no penalty. So it's considered a more well-rounded test, and there's no penalty for incorrect answers on that. So I like to suggest that students consider the ACT as well, because their chances of scoring higher are a little bit better on the ACT. But certainly they're both good tests. In terms of applying to schools, that would be the next thing to start taking a look at. College application deadlines are moving earlier and earlier all the time, it seems. So applying to schools is happening here now in the fall of a student's senior year. So this is what, November. We've got, there's been dozens of applications I've already helped students with at this point. Students ought to consider looking at schools and breaking them down into 3 different categories. Those reach, those very competitive schools that you may not get into but you'd like to try, so that's considered a reach school. The possible schools, essentially those that you pretty much fit the profile. You've got the GPA, you've got the test scores, and then always please have a backup and safety option just in case the reach doesn't pan out and the possible for whatever reason doesn't pan out. Students will at least have a backup safety school option that they can fall back on if they need to. submit applications. That needs to happen, by dates and deadlines. Ordering official transcripts is often a part of the process, so those can be ordered at the individual high schools, typically in the main office. And then, if needed, individual recommendation letters. That doesn't tend to be as big of a thing for like bigger state public schools, but smaller private schools do often require 2 or 3 of those. The common application is a pretty popular feature. It's online, and it kind of streamlines the process. So if a student was wanting to apply to 4, 5, 6 different schools, they don't have to fill out 4, 5, 6 separate applications. They could just go to this common application, do it the one time, and then submit. It would be submitted on their behalf. It also streamlines the process for the school as well. I would be contacted via email and would fill out the high school secondary report. Then there's a mid-year report and end-of-year report that we would do as well on that. But it streamlines and simplifies the process. Financial aid is another big one, of course. Kids, families, parents, they want to know how they're going to pay for college. It gets more and more expensive every year. And financial aid, is broken down. There's grants, there's loans, work-study programs, academic, athletic scholarships, etc. All of that starts with the ever-important FAFSA form. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and it kind of kicks off, every financial aid offering a student may or may not eventually get. So. The website, the official website, this is pretty important to know. It's fafsa.ed.gov. Be careful of sites like fafsa.com and fafsa.org. Those are, fine sites, I suppose, but they'll look to charge you, $60, $80, $100 to help you fill out your free application for federal student aid. So it shouldn't cost you anything. This is all set up on a calendar year basis, so January 1 is the first date that you can submit your FAFSA form. So students can start ahead of time and start, compiling like tax information and the like. But it can't be submitted until after January 1, and it's on a calendar year basis. So it goes January 1 to December 31. So seniors who are graduating in June and then planning to go to college in the fall in September of this next year, for example, 2011, that's the 2011 FAFSA form that they have to fill out. After that gets submitted, they'll be sent back something called the Student Aid Report, or the S.A.R, and then that is something that kind of tells you what you qualify for, and then you would submit that to the individual financial aid offices at the various colleges you're applying to, and then they'll put together your overall financial aid package. You qualify for this much. In terms of grants and loans, we can offer you a work study, et cetera, et cetera. Costs. College is expensive any way you cut it. And there's different categories for tuition, for example. Everybody's heard of, public school versus private schools, in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition, so I want to kind of break that down a little bit. Public schools are state institutions, and a student's tuition is subsidized in part by that individual state. So students that are going to University of Washington, Washington State University, Eastern, Western, Central Washington, and Evergreen State, those are the four-year state public schools. Private schools are not subsidized by the state, so every student who goes to that institution pays the same amount if you're from that state or outside that state. In-state versus out-of-state tuition, we've all heard that description. In-state schools are less expensive because the state is subsidizing than if a student was to go out-of-state. So, for example, if a student from Washington wanted to go, say, to Arizona State University, as an example, they would be paying out-of-state tuition because Arizona is not going to subsidize the tuition for a Washington student. They're subsidizing it for the kids from Phoenix, etc. And the flip side of that, the student from Vancouver who goes to University of Washington is going to be paying a less expensive rate, and the kid from Arizona who wants to come up to UW is going to be paying an out-of-state tuition rate. Typically, it's 2 or 3 times more expensive than the in-state rate, so it can be pretty expensive. You know, then there's things like the Western Undergraduate Exchange program that allows a student from a participating member state, Washington is a part of that, to pay 150% of that state's in-state tuition rate. So if a student was interested in going out of state, there's a way to do that less expensively with a member institution than paying that out-of-state tuition rate. Other costs are room and board, of course. You've got to eat something, you got to sleep somewhere. Books, travel expenses. So if you go across the country, are you going to come back at Thanksgiving? Are you going to come back at Christmas? And then, of course, just personal, pizza money, concert ticket money, that sort of thing. So, factor all of those costs in. But the overriding point I want to make is start early, be aware of deadlines. Those come up quicker than you might realize, and the calendar moves fast. So the SAT and ACT test dates have deadlines. College applications have deadlines. The FAFSA has date-specific information. So a student very much wants to plan, take a look at a calendar, and make sure they get all those pieces fulfilled in time to hit those deadlines and get the applications in and be set to go for next fall.